That was wildly off angle, that was. You'll never pick that up. I don't think you're ever going to see that back on camera. Welcome back. This is part 2 of heading down Mount Sunday Track. Now, as a few have pointed out in the comments, it's called a few different things. It's also the Alpine Walking Trail, and it's also been, on some maps, it is part of the Barkly River Jeep Track and so on. But what it is, actually, is the track from Mount Sunday Helipad out to the Barkly River Logging Road, which if you turn right when you get to the T intersection of where this comes out, it'll take you up to Barkly River Jeep Track, the start there just behind Mount Skeen, and then on to the Jamison-Lacola Road. But if you turn left, the way we're going to turn here at this T intersection coming up, it'll take you down to the Barkly River. And I used this and I headed down that way into the Barkly River Valley and then out the other side to access Bull Plain Road, because I wanted to head down to Lacola the quickest way, then back up to Mount Howard Road, Arbuckle Junction, and off to Moroka, because I wanted to head down to Dargo. But the problem was, when the weather turned really, really bad here, that heading down that way and back out the other side of the Barkly River Valley turned into quite the challenge on those big muddy slopes. It's very thick and lush for being right on top of the mountain. There would be some pretty decent views off either side of this, heading down the spur. But with that cloud cover and the sleet going in and out, you can see that the last video and this video here, there's probably only about an hour and a half in it, and you can see that you're sort of dropping in and out as that really bad weather's blowing around on the top here. Okay, it's going to be slippery on this bit with those mud on those tyres. Hey, have a look at that. That's drink bottles on the ground. To give you a bit of an idea of the day, it's only 3 o'clock and you can see the lights that well because it's that overcast. I'm really impressed with the tyres on this greasy stuff. I would have thought I would have slipped a lot more by now. Go up here. Very happy with that suspension. It's just soaking up that big stuff nicely. Taking it very easy on the back. I've got the suspension set up for maximum up travel. It's about in the middle. I've got a heap of down travel as well, but more importantly, I've emphasised with this suspension setup and trying to keep it close to standard. Since I've done this trip and been back, I now have a set of heavier springs in the front, and they're not much heavier. They're rated for 50 kilos heavier, probably to take a bar or something like that. Okay, that might be mount the camera there. It's pretty rocky. It's got a big step in it too. Dragging something there. We'll go straight up here. And that's why you get those bump stops right. That slammed right up in there nicely then. So with these new Ironman springs I've got in the front, I've actually been able to get the vehicle back to standard height in the front, but have a slightly heavier spring so that I can really hit the terrain hard off-road, and it soaks it right up into the arches of the chassis, so it's got a heap of up travel. What normally happens with Discovery 1s and Range Rover Classics is people want to put big tyres on them. And of course the first thing that happens when you put big tyres on these is you need to lift the vehicle right up to get the tyres to travel inside the guards. But the end result of putting the big tyres on the Discos and the Range Rover Classics is that they use a heavy spring to try and really limit the up travel, because it takes nothing to push those tyres up into the metal of the inner guards. And the cars just ride really, really stiff. It just takes a heap of the flex out of them, especially in the front end. Putting heavy springs in the front of rangy Classics and Discoveries is a real step in the wrong direction, because they really, if you can keep that standard suspension geometry and get as much up travel as down travel, these things just eat the terrain like it's not there. They just work so fantastic. And it's what you'd expect from a four-wheel drive that's made by a four-wheel drive company. I mean, that's all they do. That's why these things were so good. You know, Land Rover just makes four-wheel drives, and when it comes to getting across the terrain and that, they're just second to none. Their vehicles really work well off-road. Let's look back over towards Jamison. So the end result of what I've ended up with here in the suspension setup is that I've got reasonably soft springs. I'm pretty much back to standard height, probably slightly over in the rear by about maybe 20 mil. But I've got really big bore shock absorbers all round in it, so I can really, really soak up the really undulating terrain at speed with a fair bit of weight in the car. The EFS Extreme shock absorbers is what I'm using as the shock absorbers in this vehicle. They were non-nitro charged when I used to use them, probably 20 years ago when they first came out. I used them in a few of my modified Land Rovers, particularly ones I was using around Australia. But since then they've been nitro charged, but it's only low pressure. But it has made a difference to using them in the vehicle. They're just a little bit stiff. They're fine here because these shock absorbers work in the principle that they'll soak up the big hits and that. But the smaller stuff like potholes and road surface, they hit nice and firm. So on the road, there's this thing now, the way the suspension's set up, when you get back on road, it handles as good or better than it did when it was brand new, especially now it's back near standard height, because these shock absorbers just absolutely make the vehicle corner beautifully. They're a lot stiffer than what I've always set up my vehicles on road. I like my vehicles on road soft, like off road, but because these were nitrogen charged, I've sort of stuck with them and put them on and give them a go, but they have worked out really good. Most people that would ride in the car on road would think it was absolutely fantastic. It's just me being where this suspension system's all going to come together is when I'm putting another 100 to 150 kilos in the car to do overland. It will just ride absolutely perfect. But you'll see later on through this series of videos on this trip, there's some pretty good drone footage following, and you'll see just how well the vehicle's working, especially in the big holes in some of the more extreme tracks, just how well this thing's walking over them. And especially over at Blue Rag, where you can see the vehicle working in those really big holes that are being left by a lot of these bigger vehicles that are going over to Blue Rag to do the trip. And there's some pretty, big holes that sort most vehicles out, wheels off the ground and all that sort of thing. And the disco just rolled through there really, really nicely. And especially coming back up out of the river on the far end of Blue Rag. That track up there now has got some holes in it that just swallow the whole car. And to have the vehicle just go across those holes, especially on some of those steep spots where they are, it was really impressive. For those people that really don't like scratches on their 4B, the track from now on gets a little bit enclosed. And if you're one of those people that parks in a handicap zone so that your car doesn't get dented, this is not the track for you. And you can see the mist and the sleet starting to roll in again, and it's all leading up to probably the worst bit on this track, and it's made it nice and slippery for when we get there. I probably should say that when I say we, I don't mean me and my imaginary friend, I mean me and the disco. Just thought I'd point that out. Get out. It's definitely got more twists and turns than a good murder mystery, that's for sure. Very, very twisty. Always on the wheel, always driving this track. It's a real driver's track. It's something that, you know, if your 4B's for four-wheel driving and that's what you love, you won't be scared to bring it out here and run it along the trees. But you're really going to enjoy this drive. This drive's really, really good. And even when it gets to the extreme section later on here in the video, I'm in the disco will drive that in the dry, no worries, you know, one diff lock. But obviously she was wild and woolly this time out. But I mean, if you went to this track, and even if you were unlucky and you got a bit of rain and the surface got wet, it's not going to take you forever to get over that end bit, which we're coming up to. And it won't, and the other thing too is it won't destroy your car, depending on how you drive. there is some really wild parts in it, as you'll see when we get up there. One thing's for sure, you're going to have to drive this track. There's a lot of twists and turns in it. I was just thinking back there before, like even the Discovery's finding a lot of these bends tight. I wonder how tight. A big... That there was the sound of the sill tagging that tree around the corner. Right there. I wonder how tight it is on some of the big rigs getting around some of these. There's a camp spot. Let's check our tag here. Just got that. There goes a bunny. Steady, steady. It's slippery there. We're heading a steep downhill. It's funny watching this back in the edit. The track looks flat, but believe me, it's not flat here. Need some cutting compound on that. Those buffs out there. Easy. Come back around. I'm gonna have to slow this rig down. Okay, what do we got going on here? I'll just jump out and have a look at this. Instead of diving off the end of it and going, oh right, we've got to go back. Yeah, well, the Stiffhausen's going to hit that bit. We can head out there. We could go either way here, but how slippery though. How greasy is this? Yeah, it's greasy. Let's stay off it. One of the alleyways, you can see how steep this bit is here, or hear how steep this bit is here. You can hear the brakes struggling as I'm standing on them, trying to pull the weight of the vehicle up here to ease over this. The reason we're going slow here is because that's actually going to throw the car up and into the tree. Hopefully we just score the roof rack and we just get past. What I'll do is I'll go out wide there. There we go. We'll just give it a touch. Looking back through the edit, I reckon this is the spot where someone mentioned in the comments on the last video that there's a particular view off here. This might be what they were speaking about. This next bit here is a really good indication of just how slippery it's got now. This is a bit of a jump up. It's nothing major, you drive it in the dry, no worries. Big jump up here. Bugger. That was a bit slippery. And you can see what catches you out here. Just as you get to the pinch and it stops you, tries to turn the car around as well. Yeah, they're just a bit skatey with the mud on the tyres as well. It's easy. Easy, steady. Those tyres are a bit slippery with the mud in them. That was a Diffhausen. it gets any more slippery, I'm going to have to go down some more PSI on the tyres. We're still up at 18, 19. Be a real shame if they went and graded this one. Well, I've got to tell you at this stage, I hope that's not bottomless. Beep. The beep was in there. There was something massive under the water there, hidden away. The car hit it really hard. Just hit something hard in there. Okay, that looks a bit interesting. That would be very interesting on the way up. I'd have to surprisingly, we're not hitting. Are we? We definitely are. There's the evidence. Ooh. That's a deep one. Whoop. Now for those people that have got a wrap on their car, they're going to get their money's worth through here. I reckon it might be just about bordering on dent protection as well. Get out of there. Okay, this car's been hitting trees here, so I'm going to mount this and have a better look at all of this here. That's nice and close. Steady. Okay, some people will know where we are now at this point on the track. Now, there is a story behind this automatic, and I don't know whether it's a Toyota or a Patrol. I'm sure someone will point it out. But it broke here on the side of this hill, on the side of the mountain, and I think the story goes that they went back to Melbourne, got another automatic, and then changed it to come up this next section here, which is, you're about to see, pretty gnarly. But they broke it on this section, apparently. So a sit rep on this would be, you can see by the light, it's getting very late in the day now, and you can see by the weather we've had the way along that this is now really wet and really greasy. And you can tell by that quiet, the engine just stopped. And because it didn't start instantly, I had a pretty good idea of what this was going to be straight away. And what it ended up being was that the fuel solenoid wire on the injection pump had dropped off from the bouncing. It must have been close to dropping off, but hitting these rocks and that, it dropped off. So yeah, let's pretty much get out, put it back on and keep going. Plus the bonus was, without the car running and skating back down the hill, it was a bit of fun as well. Now the real pain and the part that really annoys me about this is, while all this was going on, I must have hit the button on the camera and it's got more focus on the dash than outside, so you don't get a really good look at what's going on, unfortunately. I cannot tell you how impressed I was with the Discovery to get to this point on the skinnies with one locker in these conditions. The biggest issue with the conditions was that any ground in between the rocks was now mud, and with the road bias tyres, well, it wouldn't matter what tyres you had, it wouldn't matter if you had 30mm of tread, you were only going to be skating around on these rocks. Actually, this section here is a perfect one for the under 30 Instagrammers to be bouncing around with their LSs, twin locked and 37s until they go pop. It's just one of those, because of the type of rock and any water on it, it just gets so greasy. It just doesn't matter what tyres you're running, it's just going to stop you. But the way I winched on the couple of sections where I had to winch was that I just kept the car in drive and just idled up the whole time with a little bit of throttle, just taking it easy on the winch, the tree, the car. Another thing that I haven't mentioned about this vehicle and the winch, I did in the first Instagram reel, the first YouTube video I done, is that the winch, it's top of the range Ironman that I picked up for $100 off Marketplace, and all that had happened is it just had a little bit of water in it, and pulled it apart, cleaned it, and it was like new. But it's keeping with the theme of this vehicle for under $10,000. And this is not hooked up to a switch to dual batteries. This is just single line pull off the starter battery. As basic as it gets. Catch you for the next video, because man, does it get better from here. Wow.